My name is John Ferrara. I am the CEO of Nimble, and I'm here today with Sarah Mouton. How did I do with that, Sarah?
Very good, very good.
Um, so Sarah is from PieSync, and PieSync is a company that is near and dear to my heart. When we were looking for a way to more effectively synchronize Nimble data with other data systems, I found in the ashes of High-Rise Demise, which you may not have ever heard of, but it was a contact platform from the base people, a platform that had hundreds, if not thousands of reviews that said this thing is boss. So I tracked down the founders, which are these two young guys in Ghent, which if you don't know where Ghent is, it's a college town in, I think it's in Belgium, right, Sarah?
Yes, that's
Yes.
correct.
And built a relationship with them because I know how hard sync is. Look, I helped invent CRM and contact management. We spent 5 years getting Gold Sync right in order to synchronize contacts across disparate systems. And so that's why we partnered with PieSync, because they're the best. And so Sarah is their success manager. She helps partners like us succeed, and she's going to help us learn more about how to be nimble with PieSync. Sarah, say hello to everybody.
Hi, everybody. Nice to have you all here. Nice to meet everybody.
And for those that don't know me, my name is John Ferrara. I'm the CEO of Nimble. Before I was the CEO of Nimble, I was the co-founder of Goldmine. Goldmine was Outlook and Salesforce combined before either existed. We started that company in an apartment in Canoga Park on $5,000 and basically achieved our dreams, which enabled me to retire at 40 and spend 10 years raising 3 babies, which I feel blessed every day to have been able to do that. And I got back in the business 10 years later because I feel like relationship management is broken, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, we're going to talk about the agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about how we build relationships today and why we need to do that better, and why it's not just sales and marketing people that are building relationships at your company, and why everybody in your company needs to participate in that conversation, and how you could do that more effectively the PieSync way. And so with that, let's talk about turning your business into a gold mine. This photograph was done by Fortune magazine way long ago, and it's not photoshopped. Somebody came in and took 20 lights and set this picture up, and they taped those boxes to my window in my office, and I still love that photo. But that's actually just a photo with tape boxes on a window, but the photographer was amazing. And so why do I talk about turning your business into a gold mine? I think that today there's silos and walls in your business, that teams don't talk to each other and they don't effectively engage with your constituency. And I think that needs to change, because ultimately the way that buyers buy has changed, and the way that you sell and engage needs to change as well. Around us every day, through the digital river that flows around us, there's billions of conversations, and you need to stand out from the crowd. And the only way to do that is to rethink the way that customers flow through your business. This funnel was developed in France in the 1800s, and it's archaic. People don't buy this way anymore. People don't want to be sold to anymore. You need to become the trusted advisor of your customer, so they not only pick up the phone and call you, but they drag their friends with them. How do you do that? You need to be top of mind throughout the entire journey, not just in the first sale, but in retention and referrals as well. And I'm not going to explain this whole buyer customer journey, but I do encourage you to Google McKinsey customer journey. In fact, Yadjas or Michaela, if you're listening in the background, please Google that and put it into the chat window. You should read this 15-page PDF. It talks about the way that people build, what triggers them to buy, how they build their selection set, and how they're more educated now than ever before when they start to engage with you, and why you need to empower your entire team to be part of that engagement. And so today, we live in islands of information. Today, you have some tool in your company. You at least have Gmail, G Suite, iCloud, or Office 365 for email, contact, and calendar. You may have multiple of each. And each of those platforms has a separate contact database for every team member, and those emails and calendars aren't connected to the contacts, let alone their backgrounds and bios, let alone the interactions that you and the team should be having on social. And your sales, marketing, customer service, and accounting applications also have contacts, and they are islands and silos as well. And that needs to change because today you can't engage with a banana. I love this picture. Um, this is how I felt when I invented Goldmine. I basically was given pieces of paper, and my sales manager said, "Go get them." And I said, "Okay, great. What do I do with this?" So I cold called people and put notes on the paper, and I did my forecast on spreadsheets the night before it was due. And I feel like contact management is still broken today, unbelievably, and that today we don't engage effectively as a team. And so the idea behind Nimble and PieSync is that you can unify the disparate contacts from all the siloed places in your business, not just the silos in Office, G Suite, and iCloud, but in your sales, marketing, customer service, and accounting, in order to build a centralized relationship system of record for everybody in your company that then works back inside of any of those applications. Imagine if you're inside your email, and you could bring up a record and see exactly who that person is, what their business is about, and the history of interactions that you and the team have had on email, calendar, and social. But more importantly, be able to take actions, because every time you interact, there should be a follow-up. There should be a next step. And in many cases, it's dictated through the conversation, but people don't do it because they have to go to the CRMs to do it. And that really occurs not just in email, but in customer service, sales, marketing, as well as in social. And that's what Nimble does. And here's a sad statistic. There's 225 million global businesses. Less than 1% use any CRM. Most people's CRM is their inbox, their spreadsheets, or Post-it notes, believe it or not. And so that's why I got back in the business to build a team, an amazing team. Thank you, team, that built a platform that is about relationships, not about reporting. CRM today doesn't stand for customer relationship management. It stands for customer reporting management. And the reason they call it Salesforce, you have to force salespeople to use it. Nobody in their right mind would use a CRM if they weren't beat on to do it. And I think that's because you work for the CRM. It doesn't work for you, and you have to go to it to use it. And that's why we built Nimble, that automatically unifies your disparate email, contact, and calendar and contacts from different business apps, enriches it with people and company data, and then builds a dashboard for you to start and end your day with. But you don't live in any one application. You basically live wherever you work. And so Nimble builds this beautiful record that gives you the background of who somebody is, what their business is about, the history of interactions that you and the team have had. And then we basically live where you engage. And you engage wherever you can have conversations with customers, including your inbox, including your calendar, and including in your contact platform. Now, I'm showing you photographs or screenshots of Office 365, which we plug in elegantly to, but we also plug in elegantly into G Suite and Gmail as well. And so Nimble, when you plug it into any one of the places that you work, it automatically plugs itself into other places like Outlook Desktop and Outlook Mobile. And we also work back in the business applications that you use. We're showing Xero here, but you may use QuickBooks. And the benefit of that is that we turn this one-dimensional record in your accounting system into a three-dimensional record that you can then have background and take action with. And we do that across all the different places you work, including where you should be prospecting. Now, let's talk about prospecting for a second. Do you think that it's only salespeople that should be prospecting? Jim, you can answer this. Sarah, you can answer this. I think that everybody in the world should be worried about their brand and their network. Go Google yourself today. And do you
Oh
show
yeah.
up even on the first page? You're going to get hired by your brand and your network, and you need to be prospecting daily. And the best way to prospect is to build relationships and pay them forward by doing introductions, and that's the way Nimble works. Is it works wherever you're engaging, including our mobile apps. Now, earlier we asked you, do you use a CRM, or you interested in, did you know that we work with CRMs? You know, the thing is that one of the key drivers of adoption for Salesforce and Dynamics back in the day were Goldmine customers that were converting to a larger system. And not everybody needs an enterprise CRM. In fact, many customers from Salesforce come and use Nimble, but there are people that do need the depth and complexity of a modern CRM like Salesforce and Dynamics for all of its depth and programming and stuff, but they stink at relationship management. So you could use Nimble in conjunction with a CRM where we provide you with all the beautiful engagement and centralized contact platform for your whole team, and we still work with your existing CRM. And that's the Nimble story. We basically are the simple CRM for Office and G Suite. We have been recognized around the globe as one of the market leaders in not just CRM, but also sales intelligence and sales enablement, because you need to give your salespeople business intelligence on who people are and what the business is about. And you could go buy Inside View or LinkedIn Sales Navigator, or Nimble has it built in. And then you need to give the salespeople a rifle, a tool to engage, an email template tracking tool. And you could go buy Outreach.io or SalesOft or use Nimble because it's built in as well. And so, that's a little bit of background on us. And with that, Sarah, I'd love to pass it to you so you can share with us a little bit how to do some of what we talked about the PieSync way.
So John, thanks for that intro. Wow, that's really like spot on some issues that we're currently having in business, right? So, and you explained what Nimble does and that what value it brings. And we also need to acknowledge that, like you said, companies, people, users, we're all using different software alongside Nimble, right? And so that's where integration comes in, and it's really important. Now, in this portion of the webinar, we'll visit a number of platforms that we know a lot of Nimble users are also invested in, like Infusion Soft and Mailchimp. Don't worry if you're not using one of these. You may be, instead of Mailchimp, you're using Constant Contact, or instead of Infusion Soft, you're in Hubspot. But the thing is, PieSync, we actually sync over 160 apps. So one of the apps that you're looking for is definitely going to be in our stack. So the logic is it's the same everywhere. So let's go by this step by step. We're going to go over the story, and don't focus too much on the apps if that's not the right app that you're using, because it's going to be similar, the story, to the ones that you're using. Okay. So, and we'll make sure it will make sense for the whole ecosystem. So phone and email client. Here's the most common use case that we see for syncing Nimble, right? It's syncing Nimble with your Google contacts. In fact, PieSync also supports iCloud and Microsoft Outlook for two-way syncing from and to Nimble. But for this story, let's stick to the G Suite here. In fact, we know there's a lot of G Suite users among you. G Suite is where you have your calendar, your emails, but also your contacts, right? Contacts are everywhere. They show up on your phone, they appear inside of Gmail. When you start composing an email, it auto-completes the to fields. It's important that data to keep in sync with Nimble, and it's possible. So Nimble follows you where you work. I think, John, that was very much what you were saying before, right? Nimble is where you work, no matter where you work. So that's important, right? It makes your Gmail experience better by showing you the insights about the person you're talking to. Here I'm looking at an email exchange with Frans Lees, my colleague. And on the right there, Nimble can show you a lot of extra info on Frans. So this is crucial, right? It also shows you maybe he was already added to Nimble, maybe he still needs to be added. If they are in your network, they should be in Nimble. That's just like the baseline. That's how it should be. So you are sitting on a gold mine. This means that you already are sitting on all your contact data. You have it already. Everyone you've sent an email is available in Google Contacts. This is the data that sits in your phone. You really use this database. This is the database that connects straight to your phone. When you ask Siri to call someone on your iPhone, Siri is going to look into this database. So it holds important data that needs to be correct all the time. And it's most complete. That's one major issue these days. Information is siloed, fragmented, but most often it will simply be not complete. In Google, you may only have a first and last name and an email address. Meanwhile, Nimble, for that same contact, has the complete story. That's where everything is. Because contact data doesn't come from just your own network. It's built with your colleagues who have their piece of the puzzle. Nimble is built for small business teams, and work groups of up to 25 people that want to combine individuals' G Suite contacts and conversations into a team relationship manager. Nimble builds contact records automatically without requiring you to input data manually. On top of that, it enriches every record with social business, insights, and engagement history. When did you last reach out to them? When did a colleague reach out? Who reached out to this person? When did we last meet this person in real life? How do we know this person? So as Nimble is building out that story, it in turn makes these records easily accessible to team members everywhere you engage. They engage with customers and prospects. Here, for example, in Gmail, Nimble has the complete story. But that sidebar could also appear when I look at Frans on Facebook, LinkedIn, or across the web. Here I've spotted Frans on our company website, and I could consider him an interesting prospect. I can leverage Nimble's prospector to find out more about him. So there's where Nimble's integration come in. A contact sync with your email client, whether it be G Suite, Outlook, really sets up the backbone of a good Nimble setup. In the box, PieSync integration keeps all contact data in sync. Data consistency, or a single version of the truth, as we like to call it, is important when customers expect a response in a matter of hours or minutes, but not days, right? So under the Nimble settings, networks and imports, you can now very easily integrate hundreds of apps to Nimble. And it's PieSync powering all of this. In the next couple of slides, we'll show exactly what that looks like. So anybody around who has already checked this out, this new version, the new networks and imports?
I checked it out. I love the simplicity that it presents users with the ability to map into the disparate data. And I think that's something that you're going to cover is really is building a map of where all your contacts are today in your business so that you can then unify them through this beautiful new UI.
Yeah, I really love it. I told you before, right, John? It's really nice. Your team has done a great job there. So PieSync is a technology that is needed because in software today, contacts, as we said, sit siloed in different clouds. We need to make sure the Google Contacts database syncs two ways with Nimble's. This is why PieSync starts off with, in its default configuration, two-way sync rules, as you can see here on the screen, each of which would essentially mirror the Nimble database with a Google Contacts database. This is like the basics. If it's in Google, it will sync with Nimble. If it's in Nimble, it will sync with Google. This is great for when you're using Nimble on your own. But when you tweak those rules, you can make it a more controlled sync. Now, that's what we are calling intelligent rules. Compared to the last slide, the sync that you can see here is now completely rule-based. For example, if a contact is given the label CRM, then it goes in Nimble. If it's given the label Google in Nimble, it goes into Google. A perfect two-way sync that you control, right? That makes more sense when working in a team. It allows me to define myself who will be shared with Nimble, or in other words, the rest of the team. I don't want my grandma's phone number to be shared with my team. I don't want them to know where my aunt's phone number is or where she lives. She's not part of our business, so no need to share that information. But then we scroll down past these rules. So you've set up the rules, you've chosen how you want to sync, and then PieSync shows you all of these data fields that will sync back and forth. It's more than just names and email addresses. It's phone numbers, addresses, company info, job titles, URLs. Oof, there's a ton of that. They will now be identically in whichever system I'm working. Or as the other team members do the same, it will make the data the same for everyone. Enrich for everyone. Every team member has their Google, their iCloud, or their Outlook, whatever they prefer, hooked up into Nimble's rich database. And here we see that the connection between Google and Nimble is very much of value. So there's so many customers. This is just a small selection that we're sharing here of customer stories that talk about people who have been setting up these things and how it has helped their teams to ensure that their contact data is consistent. And it's all kinds of verticals. We got real estate, recruiting, finance, even governments. We just visited the connection between our personal contact sphere, our phone, and Nimble. Let's zoom out now and visit contact management for the company as a whole. And let's talk about email newsletter apps such as Mailchimp, Constant Contact, or Campaign Monitor. What are email newsletter apps? Well, you can see two screenshots here of Constant Contact. A nice thing about Constant Contact is that it comes with these beautiful ready-made templates to send out, as you can see on the left side, but ultimately it's a newsletter app like any other because it is still all relying on contact management, which you can see on the right side. Organizing your contacts in lists. And like I said, don't look at what apps we're showing. There's also an overlap with the different apps. As you can see here, if you're perhaps more familiar with Mailchimp, the same happens there too. A couple of weeks ago, Mailchimp renamed their lists to audiences, but still, they are a siloed database that you need to easily manage. One nice little thing of the Nimble Contact Manager is how you can use it when you're checking out new subscribers in Mailchimp. Here's why it's so relevant to do. When someone subscribes to your campaign, you really just build on an email address that was provided. Maybe, if you're lucky, you get the correct first and last name along with that email. Now with Nimble helping you on this side, on the basis of that email, I can actually find out more about that subscriber. Look at the screenshots on the right, where I've opened up the Nimble sidebar while looking at a single subscriber. Nimble shows me where this person is located, what his job title is. Maybe it's someone we already know. And here's another reason to connect to Mailchimp. If you have experience with apps like Mailchimp, you know that you can really lose a lot of time in managing your lists, importing, exporting, and massaging that data in Excel. It's crucial you automate all of this. Enter PieSync. Let's visit the sync between Nimble and Mailchimp. It's actually as if Nimble now becomes my remote control to Mailchimp. What I mean by that is that you can bring entire segments of Nimble contacts into specific mailing campaigns on the basis of a simple tag. The screenshot here shows one simple rule. If the contact is tagged Mailchimp, then it goes into Mailchimp campaign. Importantly, below that rule, it is also mentioned that this rule can be read in the other way around. Anyone who is already subscribed to this campaign will be added or matched up to existing contacts in Nimble. It's what we call a true two-way sync. Remote control means that now wherever you have seen those Nimble tags, that teaches you a number of things. Is the contact already somebody we know? If there is a Mailchimp tag, it will show you the contact already receives the newsletter. If there isn't such a tag, you can simply add it right from this Nimble sidebar. And on the basis of that tag, PieSync picks up the contact and syncs it to Mailchimp. By the way, when we mention tags, these are in fact the tags that you use in Nimble. If you happen to know Mailchimp, over the past year, they have been putting a lot of importance to tags. They are realizing a newsletter audience cannot be simply a list of addresses anymore. It's about people. And I think, John, you mentioned that before, right? It's not just a database, it's also about people and contacts and their story that there is behind those people, right?
Yes, and I think, Sarah, one of the mistakes that people make is they get a marketing automation system, whether it's something as simple as Mailchimp or more sophisticated like Hubspot or Pardot or Marketo, and they think that that's all they need for marketing. But ultimately, I think that market automation systems are great for capturing leads from websites and put them on drip tracks and having lead scoring and unsubscribe. But once a contact's been lead qualified, you need to put it in the hands of a sales rep or business SDR, and they would use something like Nimble to engage in a one-to-one way. And they would use Nimble's templated and email tracking to do that. And that's the beauty of that sort of symphonic dance of PieSync to market automation system to Nimble with its sales intelligence and email tracking that helps you to engage in that sort of one-to-one way, because we've all gotten emails from market automation systems, and they even though they have a sales rep's name in it, it just feels like a machine and we don't respond.
No, you're true. That's right. So let's take a little bit of a closer look into how this would be or possibly could be set up. So we're looking back at those rules the way we showed with the other app. So to finishing the sync rules, the field mapping allows you to bring more data over from Nimble to Mailchimp, but also from Mailchimp to into Nimble. A lot of users love Mailchimp because it's so easy to integrate in your website or to create good looking landing pages to capture new leads. As you said, capturing leads, that's a good tool for that, right? As you're capturing that contacts data, PieSync's field mapping is where you can bring that information into Nimble, either by creating more tags or storing Mailchimp info in dedicated custom fields in Nimble. As you can see here on the drop down, any field you created can then be used to select in the mapping. The reason why you should store it in a custom field is because it allows you to slice and dice your Nimble data. So here's what I mean by that. Why would you bring Mailchimp info back into Nimble? In Nimble, I have created a dedicated view of exclusively those contacts that I know have engaged with my newsletter. It's a simple filter. Show those contacts where the so-called click rate is not empty. Click rate is information that comes from Mailchimp and that I have brought over into Nimble. Of course, I could get this information in Mailchimp as well, but now I get to work with that data inside Nimble, where all of the data is coming together. The click rate, along with other interactions, all attributes the full story. So we're back into our full circle of bringing it all together. In this view, I can drill down further and understand where they're coming from. I can add another filter on top of this, and another, and another. So that's why our customers like using PieSync to sync Mailchimp with Nimble. In this case, it's Diana, and it's just a start. This is just plugging in newsletter data. Mailchimp later on will visit other systems, bringing information into Nimble as well, like accounting apps. But first, I want to visit a more advanced form of marketing. Even though Mailchimp does come with some nice automated mechanisms built in, we know most people using Mailchimp are still using it as a straightforward newsletter platform. You broadcast one message per month and to your entire audience. Relatively simple. In the next couple of slides, I want to visit what are truly considered marketing automation apps at their core. I'm talking about the platforms, like you said, John, HubSpot, Marketo, SharpSpring, or Infusion Soft, or Keep, as they recently changed their name. These are marketing platforms that enable everyone in your network to be getting personalized communication at different times, and essentially, anyone in your network can sit in different phases of the marketing journey. It's a platform that offers decision trees, like you see in the Infusion Soft example on the right. If a user signs up, send this. If they click this link, wait 2 days, then send that. On the basis of who they are, wait another 2 days and send this or that email, and so on. We just saw how to connect Nimble to Mailchimp, and you can rely on the same logic for Infusion Soft too. One major use case of connecting Infusion Soft is for lead acquisition. In Infusion Soft, you can set up lead campaigns in so many ways: a landing page, a newsletter, an event you're organizing. Whichever strategy you're using, you're growing an Infusionsoft database that ideally you should have synced to Nimble, and you sync it in an intelligent way. Intelligent as in back and forth from Infusionsoft to Nimble, but also from Nimble into Infusion Soft. Intelligence as in make sure you take the campaign information and render that information available in Nimble too. Let's read the following sync rules I've got up on the screen. If a new lead enters Infusionsoft, sync it with Nimble, also label it as such in its lead status. PieSync will mark these as leads, not customers, not vendors, not partners. There's two reasons why I like this rule. First off, new leads are typically contacts that you have not interacted with yet, or not sufficiently, like John mentioned before. You're just capturing the lead. Having these leads enter your Nimble view in this particular way really helps you focus on those leads. Secondly, look at how the rule is completed in the other way. As I start qualifying some of these fresh leads in Nimble, I'll move them from the lead status lead to something else, something like VIP or unqualified. And that behavior in Nimble, changing the lead status, could in turn remove the tag in Infusionsoft. That's excellent because it means now other automations in Infusionsoft can be triggered on the basis of that, and so on. The title
Sarah,
of this, yes.
this is interesting to me. I'd like to
Mm-hmm.
belabor this point a little bit. So
Yeah,
what you're
go. Yeah.
saying is that if a contact is in Infusionsoft and has a
Mm-hmm.
certain tag called new lead, then you'll
Mm-hmm.
put it into Nimble, you'll update the lead status, and then
Mm-hmm.
what is this other way around?
Well, it actually means that if that contact is in Nimble with the lead status of lead, and I change it in Nimble, it means that the tag will also be changed in Infusionsoft. So
Oh,
it
so
will be removed. Yeah.
okay, so other way around means when you're inserting the contact into Nimble from the app you're putting the contact from, and
Mm-hmm.
you see that it looks a certain way, then you go back and update the originating app tag. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we
Okay,
do. So we
cool.
PieSync makes sure that any change you make, because of this rule, really, you have to tell us what to do, right? So because of this rule tells PieSync, make sure that whenever it's new lead in Infusionsoft, it should has the lead status of lead. But in the other way around, if that lead status changes, make sure the tag is no longer on there in Infusionsoft. So, and you
Cool.
can go on and create all these kind of rules, which I really like because this is more than just syncing. This is automating. This is saving you time, right? You don't have to go into your apps and do this manually. This all happens automatically.
Perfect. Awesome.
Yeah. I like that too. So injecting some humanity into Infusionsoft. Marketing automation is great, but doesn't always take into account the human connections you set up with people. But because of what we just saw, PieSync could be preventing awkward situations by assisting the automatic drip campaigns in Infusionsoft. Like we say, you change it in Nimble, it's also changed in the other tools, other apps, in this case, the Infusionsoft. So let's look at these rules. Consider this rule where if I label someone in Nimble as important, and I can do that by either sharing them or giving them a certain tag, whatever helps me to trigger them as important. And this is a lead that happens to be in Infusionsoft campaigns too. This rule will push that info from Nimble to Infusionsoft so that person will be getting a different marketing treatment. We've seen several Nimble users push all kind of information from Nimble into Infusionsoft, and they do so by means of tags, as tags really are the driving force behind all of the Infusionsoft automation. So that really helps. I think tags are really popular, right, John? Also in Nimble.
Yeah, tags are one of the simplest ways to organize your contacts. Essentially, Nimble can segment contacts, which means group them based off tags, which are tags that you apply, also based off fields that you create or fields that we pre-build. The pre-built fields including lead status and lead type, etc. But then we enrich contacts with people and company data, including their areas of influence. So you could essentially segment people that are interested in social sales and marketing, as an example. And so here's a simple example of how I prepare for a conference. I'll import the previous year's speakers and influencers from a Twitter list. Nimble imports Twitter lists. Then Nimble enriches those Twitter identities with their people and company data, including their emails. And then I segment them into a small subset, say a 3,500 person Twitter list into 200 contacts. That I would then segment them based off of them being interested in what I'm talking about, which might be a topic on social selling. And then I'll outreach to them and reference our shared interest in that. And the open rates that I get are amazing. I get a 50% open rate when I do that type of engagement. And if anybody's in marketing, they know that that a 50% open rate is unheard of.
So, and this slide here shows how we then sync that information back, the aggregated Infusion Soft data, and store it on each single customer record in Nimble in the custom tabs. And look at the bottom here where we learned that Morgan is in a couple of Infusion Soft campaigns. We still have an active opt-in for her. So let's for now move away from marketing automation and zoom in on actual sales. Even if alongside Nimble there is a dedicated CRM in use, like you could have Salesforce or Pipedrive or Microsoft Dynamics, Hubspot, CRM. So there's a ton of tools. So let's take a look at that. Oh. So let's take a look. Here, in this case, here's Salesforce, where you can see that I just opened on the right side the smart contact sidebar. That's what's helping salespeople, right? You can be looking at a contact record in the most expensive CRM out there and still not know a whole lot about that person. Nimble helps reveal business as well as public social information that helps you qualify your lead or nurture an existing relationship. It's going to show you right from this view some missing contact information that is not yet there in the CRM. It enables you to retrieve messages sent by teammates that have not synced to this CRM. Really, Nimble here acts as a different CRM, one that's broken free from its own environment and the sync running on the back of this. It's really a layer of, like you say, you put the humanity in that CRM, right? So let's take a closer look.
Speaking of humanity, I think that people buy from people they like, know, and trust, and that ultimately it's not B2B or B2C anymore. It's really P2P and H to H.
Yeah, yeah,
human to human. And so I think that that's sort of the problem with today's CRM design. Is it's designed for sales and marketing people to bag and tag customers. And people, I think, don't want to be bagged and tagged anymore. They don't want to be sold to anymore. Sales is a 4-letter word, and I think service is the new sales. And so if you engage with any human being with the intent to serve them and help them grow, it will transform the way that you do business and the way people see you.
Oh yeah, definitely. I like how you say that service is the new way. I mean, we don't want to be treated as, oh, that's my new target and I'm going to hit it and I'm going to sell this. No, we like to be in a relationship with the person and learn from each other. And when I learn something, I will respect you and I will appreciate you. That's how we learn from each other and relationships grow, right?
Amen.
Yeah, so here's just another print screen of how you see the custom mapping, and you can see that all these fields can be brought into sync. So no matter which CRM you're using, it's really easy to set up and sync it with Nimble. So let's take a look at some of the bookkeeping tools, right? So the PieSync integration also has its merits when you use it to hook up Nimble to accounting apps like Xero or Quickbooks. on the left screenshot, whether it is to send and track invoices, you can see that, arrange expenses, do payroll. These platforms, more than any other platform, rely on exact and complete contact information. Like you can see on the right screenshot, the other thing that they do is when you're writing out that invoice and you select the customer to bill in that dropdown, you need the right email. You don't want to be sending your invoice to the wrong person or the wrong company, right? So that the right company info need to be there. The right billing address needs to appear. So this is crucial because in the end of the month, you just want your bills to be paid as well, right? Otherwise, what would happen to your business? So for today, so this is why the sync is recommended. And we're going to take a closer look at QuickBooks and Nimble. So like I mentioned, if you're not using QuickBooks, but you're using another bookkeeping tool, the flow is more or less the same, right? So we want to make sure that the data that sits in QuickBooks maintains the very tight link with Nimble. By default, the QuickBooks data would sync two ways with Nimble. And I understand that that's a concept that can make some accountants very uncomfortable as a, well, what would you be? You're very protective about this data, right? This is crucial in a business. So pricing does not touch the financial information. That's really important to know. It's about the contact details. So,
can we cover that for a second? So I assume that in QuickBooks, there's custom fields mapping from within PieSync, because PieSync maps by default the contact fields, but then you can map custom fields, right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm
And
gonna.
so,
Yeah.
okay, you gonna cover that? Go ahead.
Yeah. But go ahead. You can.
So
It's
for
okay.
me, I would want to know the last sale date, the year-to-date sales, the credit limit. There's like 5 or 10 fields that I would love to have a Nimble that I could then segment off that to then do outreaches to people based off
Yes.
of how we've done business. So we'd love to see that if you have it.
Yeah. What I just want to say with this slide that we're looking at right now is you can always add the option to make it a one-way instead of a two-way sync. So if you're looking at this, it's if a customer is in QuickBooks, then sync it between Nimble and QuickBooks. So this is a one-way, and you can see the arrows on top. You can always select a different arrow or say like only do the sync in one way. So by default it's two-way, but you can always change that as you would prefer or what you like, how you would like to sync. So like, now that's the little pop-up there saying with the arrows that you can select which direction you want it to sync. Okay, and then we have the data from QuickBooks will flow into Nimble. You see the arrows only going in one way. And like you said, in the field mapping, you can also use the custom fields. So we won't sync the invoice data, but if you want to, you can do like what I did here is which I set up an extra custom mapping to sync over the balance, for example. And why would you do that? Because when we go back to Nimble, this is still the QuickBooks screenshot. So in QuickBooks, you get this good view where you can sort on customers with an open balance. And essentially, we're waiting for payments by Aaron and Crystal. And if this is relevant information to me through the connection, I can actually go and add that information. I can replicate that exact same view over in Nimble. Here I can reconcile someone's paying activity with a social interaction with that someone. Again, it's about bringing the human element into the business relationship. This view has information that QuickBooks does not have. Nimble shows us when we last contacted someone. So when we plan on doing so the next time, maybe we should point out that there's still an open invoice balance. And I think, John, this was what you were referring to, right? That this information is also important to see in Nimble, right?
Yeah, so I think that people sort of forget people they've sold to. And there's a quote gold mine in your accounting system. And if you were able to sync your contacts that you sold to before, including the data on those sales, you could then outreach to them for net new sales, for referrals, and even to collect money, because ultimately there may be people that owe you money. And if you have the past due date and past due, how many days or whatever, you could send outreaches. And so having those fields in Nimble is invaluable.
Yep, exactly. So this is also a small slide in between from Chuck, who actually, and this is a really good example, obviously for privacy, I cannot show his account, but he's actually using Nimble to connect to his QuickBooks and to his constant contact. And so to automate that whole process. So in the examples that I've given, I've been talking about Nimble and another app, but of course, you can see the ecosystem growing and connecting Nimble with each app and setting up those automations, adding and exchanging that information. It can really save you time and a lot of stress, avoid a lot of stress. You don't need to go with your Excel sheets and importing, and maybe there's a note somewhere stick to your desk that you also need to add somewhere. So really it can help you save time, so to focus on what really matters, the people in your business, right?
I just want to point out that that guy that you just used as an example, Chuck Royer, has been selling CRM software for over 30 years, and he's quite the expert in the field.
So I got the right example there.
You got a good guy.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we just, in a quick way, we just visited the diverse landscape of different software vendors that we sync up to Nimble, all by using the same kind of syncing logic. I hope that was clear in the slides that I've shown you. It's always the rules, the mapping, and then just hit the syncing. Now, I just wanted to add that next to all these apps, there we go. There's actually over 170 apps, and we are adding new platforms every week based on audience suggestions. If you think we are missing out on an app, go to our website, vote on the app that we should be adding into this stack, and we'll investigate. We'll start talking and we'll build a relationship with this partnership, with this partner, with this other app, with the people working at that company, and seeing how we can add them and build that ecosystem, right? So, and then there may be the question of what is the pricing for all of this? And so PieSync offers, for the Nimble users, there isn't any. PieSync is available for all Nimble users for 2 weeks on an unlimited basis. So when you start up your syncing, the first 2 weeks are completely free. After those 2 weeks, PieSync is still completely free if you choose to keep 2,000 contacts or less in sync. That's the plan that would otherwise set you back $19 a month. So it's good to know that this is included for free with your Nimble subscription. So go ahead and try it out. If you want to rely on PieSync to bring over contacts on a one-time basis for more than 2,000, say an Infusion Soft database of 50,000 contacts, there's no limit there. You can also rely on PieSync for just that one-time import at no extra cost. So there is going to be an extra cost if you need more than 2,000 contacts. And to keep them constantly in sync, that's when we will ask a price. And our pricing page has this handy slider that will show you what the pricing will be for your database syncing needs. So it actually is based on the volume that you want to sync. So here on this slide, you can see, so first 2 weeks for free. If you don't sync up more than 2,000 contacts, it remains free. Once you hit a number higher than 2,000 contacts, you can visit our website and check out the pricing and what it can be. But if you're less than 2,000 contacts, you're still safe. So what could be the next step? I would say go into Nimble and go into those settings and see what you can start syncing. We have a very good self-help here on that on our blog. You can reach out to support, and also for questions on how to optimize Nimble, you can reach out to Care for Nimble. But also, I would like to help you out with just a few steps, because what you can do actually before that is do an inventory. So you've been listening to John and me explaining how it's crucial that contact data is no longer in silos, that it's all merged so that you can really start working on the relationship, that you don't lose time with administration so that you can focus on the people. But first you need to know where are your contacts in your company. You need to make that inventory. And it could be in Excel, it could be maybe even on notes or a few apps that you're having. And then the second question is, now make the inventory of the tools that you're using and maybe even your colleagues are using that you are not aware of. And once you have those inventories, you can now go into Nimble and start syncing them with PieSync and set up these automations, try out these rules, do this mapping, and then once you've done that, PieSync will actually be running in the background and you can just continue your work, continue your focus on the people and not having to worry about this administrative business that we're taking care of. Now, the previous slide says that you get a 2-week free trial. No worries. You can just, if you chat with us and you say, hey, I just listened to the Nimble webinar, can I get 2 extra weeks? So just let us know on chat on our website and we'll give you some extra time to do that inventory, to set up those rules, to do maybe some testing. What is happening if I use this tag, if I sync those fields? But some customers actually make a drawing before starting to sync, and they make a drawing of where are my contacts, what am I using, how do I want it to act, and then they go in and they just set up all the rules. And like our last customer story said, it just saves so much time that you can use to focus on what really matters, right? So that's really what I just wanted to share with you. John, I think, do you have anything to add to this last suggestions?
Well, first off, Sarah, I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to walk us through some of the details of what PieSync and Nimble mean to a business in enabling them to unify their disparate contacts. One of the things I do want to point out, we have one of Microsoft's top reseller partners listening today, David Gersing. Hey, David, nice to see you here.
Oh, nice.
And David would be interested that you guys just released your Business Central two-way sync, which adds to the dynamic two-way sync. So now you could sync front and back office contacts as well. And so there are a number of questions. I'm happy to run through the questions just to cover them to make sure that we get them answered. And so here's one for you, Sarah. If this comes from Jonathan Handler. He's asking, if I add name suffix to Office 365, does it automatically get added to Nimble? And if also present PieSync. So does it by default map name suffix for contacts?
Yeah, so this is a really important one and a good question. Thank you for that. You know how in apps, names are sometimes could be in 3 fields, like surname, last name, suffix, or whatever. And in another app, it's just in 1 field. Well, that's where PieSync, but that's what we're working on, is that we can actually indeed split it up into the right field or merge it into 1 field from one app to the other. So yes, PieSync will take care of that.
Great, so that's something in progress.
No, that's already the case, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. See, that's why I love you guys. Another question from Daryl Borsheim. If I don't manage the app that I receive leads from, can I still sync with that app? And I think that the answer is it depends on the app. Some apps have not as deep a level of security. And if you have auth into the app, it basically gives you auth into the APIs and enables you to sync. Other apps enable security to set the ability for people to, if they have a login to the app, to be able to synchronize it. And let's just take Salesforce as an example. So if I'm a sales rep and I'm using a Salesforce account and I want to sync my contacts from my leads that I get from my business from Salesforce into Nimble so I could be more effective using that, I believe that Salesforce probably has a security setting that enables or disables that ability. Is that correct, Sarah?
Um, so so in Salesforce, with which would be the other app?
Let's say that you want to use Nimble and they want to use PieSync and they're a sales rep, they're not the administrator. Can they use PieSync to sync leads that they get from Salesforce, which are dead leads in a dead database, to a living and breathing system that they could use for engagement and prospecting? Or do they need to get permission from the administrator? And I think the answer to that, it depends on the app.
Yes, it depends on the app. And in the case of Salesforce, it needs the administrator's permission.
Okay.
So, and yeah, in some cases, it also depends, like you said, how do you authorize an app? Sometimes it's with the API key, sometimes it's with a login. And if your colleague's account wants to be synced with your account, you might need to ask your colleague, can you log in so I can sync it up, so I can set it up? But for Salesforce, I happen to know that the admin needs to be giving authorization for this. Yeah.
Okay, great. I've got some feedback from some people who attended their webinar. They said, great job on the webinar. PieSync and Nimble are fantastic. Keep up the great work. Another feedback from one of our Nimble partners said that he spent 5 hours helping a client update their QuickBooks account. 80% of the records were missing data from 370 customers. They used PieSync and Nimble to synchronize the databases together. They ran a campaign against it last week, and they were able to generate $25,000 in new opportunities, and the customer was very, very happy. And that's why I said there's a gold mine in your accounting database. Another question, and we're just going to answer the questions. You guys can feel free to stay on, and we'll also compile answers to this and send those out to you. Can you touch on the advantages of an app like Nimble or SharpSpring that has native integration with PieSync or non-native integrations? And I think the answer to that is this, and this is also a question from one of our partners, Chris. Sarah, if you don't know Chris, you should get to know some of our resellers. They're amazing people, and really they're the apostles in the field, if you will, right? They're the people that spread the gospel. So the answer, I think, is there are built-in two-way syncs into systems, just like Nimble has two-way sync and built into it for some systems and some things. But the thing that PieSync really delivers is most systems have a limited number of things it might integrate with. It might integrate with Mailchimp, QuickBooks, and Google Contacts, and they don't have the ability to map net new custom fields, and they don't have the ability to map into unlimited things. And that's why we partnered with PieSync, because they have really an unlimited number of apps, and not unlimited, but a lot, and a lot coming down the pike. Can you use tags in Nimble and set up email drip campaigns as well? I think you covered that. PieSync only synchronizes contact info. I believe they have plans to expand this to account and company data as well. This is from another one of our resellers, Michael McKenna in Ireland. Can you answer that?
He's right. He's right. We're working on that, on adding and expanding to account and companies. It's on the roadmap, and I cannot give you an estimate of the time, like with most roadmaps, but it's definitely one that is a very high priority for us.
Okay.
Because we get so much questions about it.
Yeah,
and it makes sense. It makes sense to add that.
And Nimble's evolving to have more than just accounts and contacts. We're going to have leads type as well. And so I assume that when you transition to supporting accounts and contacts, that you'll support contacts and leads, which is a different.
Leads are actually already possible. So if you're going to add it on Nimble, we're just going to add it in PieSync, because the apps that we now have that already have the distinction between a lead and a contact, you can already, when you authorize the two apps, you select, do you want to sync the contacts or the leads? So that's already possible. Yeah.
Perfect. And another question is, my separate systems aren't synced yet. Please talk about how you keep garbage out of Nimble, which is my master database. And I think you covered it. It's tags. Essentially use the intelligent segmentation in PieSync to determine what goes where, in which way do they go. Is that right?
Mhm. Yeah, it's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question is, where do I find the correct setup of Nimble and PieSync? And I think there's a number of questions like that. And I think that
Mhm.
that PieSync has an incredible FAQ and blog series that Franz has
And a lot
built
of videos. Yeah.
videos on a lot of this stuff. We have limited ones that we've created as well, but PieSync has a number of them, and also they're just great people. Reach out to them. Um, you know, I think that if you know history at all, you know that that this area of the world welcomed people from countries like England and Ireland and France before they came to America as the early colonists, because they really are amazing people and they support diversity. So that's another reason why I love you guys. So another question is, why does Nimble ask me about social connections for the same contact? David, I sent an email to our care team and copied you, so you should get an answer to that shortly. What's the database backend of Nimble? It's PostgreSQL and MongoDB. Do we have, is there Autotask integration? Currently, Microsoft resellers run their businesses on ConnectWise and Autotask, Sarah. These are trouble ticket tracking, project management, and bad CRMs that they use for their businesses. And you guys currently support ConnectWise.
We do.
Have you talked about Autotask at all? I didn't see it in your planned
No,
list.
no. Let me quickly look for that.
I didn't see
We
it.
have
So
we have so many. No, yeah,
I would let me vote for that for all the Microsoft resellers out there.
yeah.
Autotask, we're going to drag you into thousands of Microsoft resellers, and
Okay.
Autotask is one of their systems of choices. So we
I
have,
just have one question on that.
yes,
For us, integrating with an app, with a tool, it's really crucial that the tool has at least some sort of contact data stored.
I'm pretty sure it
For
does.
example, okay, that's good. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it does. And Charles Swinburne, if you're still there, ping us and let us know if that is the case. But I'm pretty sure that it does.
Okay. Okay.
Um, Towards the end of your presentation, please touch on the enhanced capabilities we see with additional field formatting you're making available. PieSync is contact record centric. I believe we will really see the impact when using PieSync. Now,
Yeah.
Chris, I'm not sure what you mean by that, but maybe you know, Sarah.
Yeah. Well, I think what Chris is referring to is the field mapping and how what fields we do by default and which ones you can add. And actually, it's different for each app. It depends on how open the API is, the endpoints that we get, not to get too
Mm-hmm.
technical. So it's really a matter of testing and checking that out. Also, don't be misled. Sometimes you might think that this field is based on a contact, which it actually is not or something. So that's really, like you said, John, we have it in our help articles, very detailed. But the
Uh-huh.
best way is to just go in and test it out. And with the drop down, you can right away see which fields we can sync.
Okay, I think what you might be referring to in this question is if I sync a numeric dollar value field from
Okay.
QuickBooks, uh, do you guys support field types?
It's always we do, but we prefer, and I think it's actually sometimes not always possible. And again, based on which app you're syncing with,
Mhm.
but it's always possible to a text field.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that could be
Bec-
the only limitation. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's a vision that I have for you, and I've shared this with you out. I believe that in addition to syncing contacts and related
Mhm.
contact information, that you should, for certain popular apps like Mailchimp and QuickBooks and Xero, sync default sets of fields and set
Mhm.
those fields up within the application as a default. For
Yeah,
example,
we do that. We do that. Yeah.
you do that today?
Yeah, we do offer default fields, but also again, it's limited to or depending on which app you're connecting.
I
But
see.
along next to the default fields, you have the option to sync the custom fields and then creating extra fields in your apps and having those synced over. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So Charles Swinburne says that there are contact records in
Okay, good to know.
Autotask.
Yeah.
And Chris Kerr says that he's looking for checkboxes and other field options as well in the future. And I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
that they have, these things on their roadmap. I
Mm-hmm.
think that we have covered the bulk of the questions, Sarah.
Okay.
And I want to thank everybody for amazingly staying with us for 13 extra minutes past the top of the hour. Sarah, I know that it's supper time for you, and
Yeah.
so I have a vision of you walking down to the bread shop and grabbing a baguette and living in this charming village on the edge of Belgium and France, and
Yeah.
I intend to visit you there one day so we could
You
have
must. You must.
of
Always welcome.
a little
Yeah.
bit of Chablis, which I think might be made near you.
Okay. Cool. Let's
Okay.
do
So
that.
thank you everybody for attending. Please reach out to Sarah and Franz and say hello to them and let us know how we can help you grow your business the PieSync and Nimble way. Thanks to Yajis and Michaela in the background for supporting this webinar. Have an amazing Wednesday. Thank you so much.